Hello, my name is Mike Agustinelli, and today I want to go over something that I'm calling Inanimate Evils. I want to go over what that means, and if these inanimate evils even exist, which is kind of a weird thing that I come up with a name, and I might actually end up telling you that they don't exist. So first off, inanimate evils. Before I define it, I want to explain how I came to even thinking about this concept. And I'm pretty sure everybody is accustomed to this idea of money is the root of all evils. That's a very famous phrase. Also, you should be seeing on the screen, I have another little thing where it's money equals evil. It's a very famous, very popular sentiment. And the problem is that the phrase is actually not money is the root of all evil. This is a misconception, because the full phrase is actually the love of money is the root of all evil. And I started thinking about that. I've thought about this for a long time, and there is a big difference, even though it's only 3 words between money is the root of all evil and the love of money is the root of all evil. It actually changes the meaning of the phrase entirely, right? Because one phrase, money is the root of all evil, it places the blame for evil on money, on an inanimate object. Money isn't real, right? Most people understand that it's made up, right? In some ways. But the love of money doesn't blame money, it blames our love of it. Humanity's greed, which doesn't necessarily apply to everybody, but overall, especially in a society as if you're in the U.S. as I am, it is a capitalist society, and without money and without greed, maybe society wouldn't function as well as it does, but it does lead to problems. So it made me think about something. How is it we can so easily change that phrase and take out the love of and turn it into something completely different? Why are we blaming an inanimate object? Why are we blaming money instead of what deserves all the blame when things go wrong? People. And so in this slide that I have, I took the definitions of inanimate and evil from Google. And basically I came up with this definition for the idea of inanimate evil. And it's that an inanimate evil is an item, a thing, that doesn't require human action or inaction in order to cause evil in the world. Now, philosophically speaking, evil is a little bit different than how most people tend to think of evil. Most people tend to think of evil as something being attached wholeheartedly with religion. So, the acts of the devil or demons or people who are acting on behalf of the devil. If you come from a Western, Christian tradition, very accustomed to blaming the devil for a lot of things. That is usually how we see evil. But really, evil is an immoral act, right? So murder is evil regardless of whether there is any kind of religious connection, right? So if you just kill somebody, that's evil. It doesn't matter if it was religious or not. And also, it's not necessarily an inbred thing, like, he's got evil inside him. It's not. It does not have that connotation. It's just an evil act, a malevolent act, an immoral act. That is evil. So the thing is, when we have this idea of inanimate evils, which I just defined, we're led with some questions. And it's, can an inanimate object like money be evil? Can it commit evil acts? And where does the blame lie if they are in fact evil? If the inanimate objects are in fact evil. And the reason why I started thinking about this originally wasn't actually because of money. That's probably one of the more famous phrases to symbolize this inanimate evil concept. But actually where I started thinking about it had to do with religion. Because religion tends to get a lot of blame. Organized religion, or religion itself, gets a lot of blame for being the root of all evil as well. On the screen, you've got it's Buddha. He's wearing a cross. He's got the Star of David on his pants, a turban, and I don't know what else. But it's basically blaming all the religions for violence, for the evil in the world. And I was raised Catholic, and I was one of those people who had that very cliched epiphany that organized religion causes all these problems, right? The world would be better without religion. Religion is, maybe it wasn't meant to be evil, but it's evil now. And I know I'm not the only one that's had this thought. I grew up with a lot of people who were similarly raised Catholic and similarly came up with this cliched concept. And I mean, it's very popular. I mean, there's clothes, as you can see. And there's even, originally, I believe it became The God Delusion, Richard Dawkins' famous book, but apparently it was originally called The Root of All Evil, ? Although, to his credit, to be fair, I can't confirm that this quote comes from him, but I'm assuming it does because it's everywhere. He says, religion is not the root of all evil, for no one thing is the root of all anything. Now, he's not really letting religion off the hook, but he's just saying that's not the root of all evil. And I started thinking, though, going back to that cliched epiphany that religion is bad, religion is evil, religion causes evil. I started thinking, though, I'm like, but religion doesn't do anything. It's religious people who do bad things. It's religious people who discriminate against others. It's religious people who commit atrocities or discriminate against others and kick them out of their communities or judge them unfairly for all kinds of reasons. How do you blame a doctrine, an ideology, for the actions? Because the religion doesn't commit an action. For all the hate some people might have for Christianity or for Judaism or for Islam, they've done nothing. They themselves, that religion, the ideology, has done nothing. The people who follow it, they're the ones that commit the evil acts. So we come to this idea of ideas versus actions. Where does the evil lie, right? And so I have here, it's an idea cannot act. It cannot kill. It cannot rape, and it cannot steal. An idea is just an idea. Whether it's it's on TV, on YouTube, in written form, ideas, they may not be good, but they are not actions unto themselves. And I believe that the concept of evil, for the most part, should be reserved for actions and not for ideas. Now, I want to end this one slide here by saying that this isn't to say that ideas can't be bad, wrong, or dangerous. Because I'm going to go over some things that are bad, wrong, and dangerous. But to call them evil, to blame them for the acts that happen in their name, doesn't really make sense. So, we here have a copy of Mein Kampf. Now, Mein Kampf, I'm not gonna lie, I have not read Mein Kampf, which is kind of, as a person who's spent a lot of time studying religion, I've been told many times I should at least, give it a once through to see what's in there. So I'll admit, maybe going after this book isn't really fair on my part, but we all know for the most part that Mein Kampf is generally considered an evil book, and a book of evil ideology. But the thing is, nobody ever died at the hands of Mein Kampf. Nobody was ever murdered, raped. Nobody had their land taken away. Nobody was excluded from their communities by the book Mein Kampf. Instead, it was the man who wrote Mein Kampf and then the people who eventually followed that man that committed all the atrocities. Did Mein Kampf really kill 6 million Jews in the Holocaust? No, Hitler did, and his followers. Did Mein Kampf invade, Austria, Czechoslovakia, France, the Soviet Union, Poland, all those other countries? No, Mein Kampf didn't do any of that. Hitler and his followers, they're the ones that did that. So where does the blame lie in this situation? Do you really... Now, I get that it's kind of weird to make the connection between Mein Kampf and something like money, right? Although I do believe there's a lot of people who would make a connection between Mein Kampf and religion, because they'd say, what's the difference between Mein Kampf and, let's say, the Bible? Personally, I think that is an incredibly wild connection to make, but I do believe there are some people who wouldn't make that connection. And the thing is, whether you hate the Bible or Mein Kampf or the Quran or any of these things, those books, those texts, those ideas, those ideologies, they themselves never committed an act unto themselves. Those who maybe wrote them did, maybe those who read and believe in them did, but to blame an inanimate object for evil acts, it feels a little unfair. There's also a problem with what if when we do blame these inanimate objects, these inanimate evils, as I'm calling them, there are some consequences of going down that path. The first is that we ignore the role of the individual, the choice. Because the thing is, you could say, well, that person was raised in a Christian household, that's why they hate gays. Or that person grew up in Saudi Arabia, and that's why they turn into a terrorist, because they were inundated with the teachings of the Quran. You could say these things, but when you do, you completely take away any sense of free will, any sense of choice, any sense of human agency in the situation. You're blaming something other than the person who committed the act. Now, in certain situations, yes, being raised in a certain environment obviously is going to have an effect. There's no denying that. But to go and blame something that didn't commit an act over the person, or even with the person that committed the act, that just doesn't feel right to me. The second thing is, let's say we want to say that, okay, inanimate objects are part of the equation. Well, now we got to go down this road of we have to formulate an equation that says how much is the blame of the person who committed the act and how much is the blame of the text or the ideology that they were enforcing. That's a really hard thing to do, because now you're saying, okay, well, was it like 70% the guy who did it and 30%, is 70% Hitler's followers and 30% Mein Kampf? Or was it like 60-40, 80-20? That's a really weird conversation to have to go through. One that I don't believe really would end up making sense. The last one, and I know the slippery slope argument isn't a very popular one a lot of times, but you do then have to ask yourself the question, who determines which inanimate item is evil and which isn't? Because if you're a Christian, if you're a very fundamentalist Christian, especially in the United States these days, you might look at the Quran and say that is an inanimate evil. That is an evil item. But if you're Muslim, raised in Egypt, you might look at, you probably wouldn't look at the Bible necessarily as evil, because generally Muslims do actually take a lot of teachings from the Bible. But you might look at, let's say, Buddhism. Most people in America kind of are okay with Buddhism. Even if you don't follow Buddhism, it's like, how do you get mad at Buddhists? But what if what if somebody says, no, the teachings of Buddha in any shape or form are evil? Who determines if that's the case? Who determines if, as I'm recording this is a day or two after Alex Jones got a lot of his channels, his YouTube channel, his Facebook accounts, they were shut down. Who determines that he is evil and that, say, the Young Turks aren't evil? Or that Rachel Maddow from MSNBC, who's to say what she says or her ideologies that she's putting forward aren't evil? It's hard to say that it's easy to look at Mein Kampf and say Mein Kampf is evil. But money or the Bible, this starts to be very much a perspective. From whose perspective? Who gets to decide? Where does it stop? Because couldn't anything be evil in the right hands or the wrong hands? So my conclusion is, I do realize it's kind of weird because I came up with this whole concept. I named it and everything, Inanimate Evils. But I feel like it's a concept that's already there. It just doesn't really have a name, and people don't really think about it because it's easy to blame inanimate objects, because then it takes away all the responsibility that people have. But my conclusion here is that inanimate evils, they either do not exist, as I believe for the most part they don't, or if they do, they're only a very small part of an equation that would be almost impossible to really determine with any exactitude. And if we continue to blame inanimate evils, we give power to an entity that doesn't deserve it. Again, I go back to Mein Kampf, and it may be a immoral book, it may be a wrong, or it may induce people to commit evil acts. But it's not the book that's doing it. The entity, the book, does not act. It cannot act. It is inanimate, right? And to go with that, the second point here is we lessen the blame that the truly guilty deserve. As long as you blame, if you're to say money is the root, go back to that first slide I had. Money is the root of all evil. If you blame money, why wouldn't you just blame the people who are obsessed with money? And most people, they like, oh, that's the connection. But not when you're blaming money, oh, let's get rid of money. Let's go to a barter system. Let's go get rid of any kind of currency. Like, that doesn't make sense. That's just silly, right? That's not a world that we're going to live in anytime soon. Just don't blame the money. Blame the love of money. Blame the greed. Blame the things that people do to attain the money. Because the money can't do anything. It cannot act. It cannot commit evil acts by itself in any way, shape, or form. It could be used for evil acts. You can pay for an assassin, but it's not going to assassinate somebody, right? So, thank you for watching my video. I know this one's a little bit weird because it is a very theoretical kind of conversation, and I hope you watch some of my other videos. Thank you.